Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a truly mind-bending historical and spiritual site. We are exploring the Kamakhya Temple. It's this absolute epicenter of Tantra, ancient mystery, and immense cultural significance, perched right up on the Nilachal Hills in Assam, India. It's a place where history, deep-rooted mythology, and some incredibly unique architectural styles all crash together. So whether you're already deeply familiar with the temple's history or, you're just starting to uncover its secrets, I am super thrilled to guide you through the raw, generative power that completely defines this incredible sacred space. Okay, let's dive into this. Can you even imagine a major temple with literally no sculpted idol to worship? It sounds like a total paradox, right? I mean, India is renowned for its magnificent, intricately carved stone idols, yet one of the most famous, most spiritually powerful goddess temples in the entire country completely lacks a traditional statue. There's no sculpted idol to worship there at all. It totally defies our conventional expectations of what a major temple should look like. So how does a site become this massive center of pilgrimage and spiritual power without an idol at its core? Let's find out. To answer that, here is our agenda for today. First, we'll explore the temple with no idol. Then, we'll trace its ancient origins and legends. After that, we'll decode the unique Nilachal architecture, examine the complex world of Tantra, symbolism, and sacrifice, and finally, we'll talk about experiencing the living temple. All right, Section 1, the temple with no idol. So if you strip away the grand exterior and walk into the deepest, most sacred chamber of the Kamakhya Temple, what exactly are millions of devotees traveling to revere? Well, the answer lies in understanding what a Shakti Peeth actually is. A Shakti Peeth is basically considered a sacred seat of Devi Shakti, the divine feminine. But Kamakhya is distinctly different. While a lot of temples honor protective or warrior forms of the goddess, Kamakhya represents the raw power of creation, life energy itself, and the purified divine dimension of desire. In this Shakta tradition, desire isn't viewed as a weakness, not at all. It's seen as the fundamental force that moves existence forward and sustains the entire energy of creation. And the way that raw power of creation physically manifests here is absolutely fascinating. Deep inside a dark cave known as the Garbhagriha, or the Sanctum Sanctorum, there is no statue. Instead, devotees worship a yoni-shaped rock fissure. This natural rock formation is perpetually wet from a subterranean spring. It's a direct, literal veneration of the generative power of nature, the fluid nature of life force. It makes the worship here feel incredibly elemental, deeply grounded in the earth itself.
Moving on to Section 2, Ancient Origins and Legends.
To understand how such an elemental form of worship really began, we need to shift gears and look at its deep historical roots. Now, what's really interesting about this is Kamakhya's incredible antiquity. While pinpointing an exact founding date is pretty much impossible, historical analysis of legends suggests a temple existed here under King Naraka way back around 2200 BC. Fast forward to the 5th century AD, and the Umachel rock inscription gives us early hard evidence of a cave temple on these hills. The present structure we see today, however, is a much later medley. It was rebuilt and completed in 1565 AD by the Koch king Narayana after facing earlier destructions. But honestly, the origins go even deeper than those ancient kings. They go all the way back to the indigenous tribes of the region. The very name Kamakhya actually has pre-Vedic tribal roots. Historical hypotheses suggest it derives from the Austro-Asiatic Kasi-Jayantia language. And the phrase Kamakhya breaks down just beautifully. You've got Ka meaning women or mother goddess, Mi meaning blood, and Ka denoting the power of protection. These indigenous groups heavily influenced the non-Aryan rituals of the temple, embedding core elements like the veneration of natural rock, water, and the offering of blood. And woven right into this historical tapestry are some of the most captivating mythological legends in Sanatana Dharma. According to the Puranas, the celestial architect Vishvakarma and Kamadeva built the original temple precisely where the womb, or yoni, of the goddess Sati fell. Then there's this wild legend of King Naraka. He was so captivated by the goddess that he actually proposed to her. She agreed, but only if he could build a stone path all the way up the hill overnight. She ended up tricking him by making a cock crow before dawn to signal morning, so she could refuse him.
And finally, there's the fascinating tale of a later Kok king who secretly tried to watch the goddess dance. He was discovered, he was cursed, and to this day, seriously, no way, descendants of the Kok royal family pass by the hill hidden under umbrellas to avoid the curse.
That brings us to Section 3, the unique Nilachal architecture. So the myths bring the history alive for sure, but the physical structure of the temple tells its own incredible story. The temple is masterfully designed to map this spatial journey from outer daylight into inner divine darkness. As a pilgrim, you move through 5 distinct chambers. You start in the Nat Mandir, which is a dance hall with this gorgeous shell-shaped ceiling. Then you move through offering and congregation halls, and eventually transition through a vestibule right into the Garbhagriha, that inner sanctum under a hemispherical dome. Every single chamber has a very distinct purpose and a completely different roof style. It's like a giant architectural puzzle. But the exterior of that inner sanctum is where the magic really happens architecturally. See, when the Koch dynasty tried to rebuild the temple in the 16th century, their architects simply couldn't replicate the original stone spire. They were totally stumped. So, out of pure necessity, they used Islamic dome building techniques. They created this bulbous dome resting on a 16-sided polygonal tower. The contrast of those red brick domes placed over the original gray stone walls resulted in an entirely new, completely hybrid design. This accidental fusion of local Assamese craftsmanship and Islamic techniques is what's now famously known as the Nilachal style. Talk about a happy accident.
Moving right along to Section 4. Tantra, symbolism, and sacrifice.
You know, the physical fusion of the temple perfectly mirrors the blending of its different spiritual paths. As we transition into the esoteric practices here, the crucial point to remember is this. Kamakhya is an absolute epicenter of Tantra, and Tantra is a path that accepts nature in its totality, embracing both creation and destruction. Modern spiritual teachers explain that within this framework, offering a life force isn't just an act of mere violence. It's deeply, deeply symbolic. The core principle being taught here is that true sacrifice is actually the sacrifice of one's own ego and inner negativity. True sacrifice equals ego sacrifice. And that brings us to the practice of animal sacrifice at the temple. In tantric symbolism, the most commonly sacrificed animal, the goat, directly represents human ego, ignorance, and our base animal instincts. So the ritual signifies an inner purification. You're symbolically surrendering your own negativity straight to the divine. It's a stark acknowledgement that creation and destruction are an interconnected cosmic cycle. Life is quite literally sustained by life. Also, it's really important to note that this ritual is strictly bound by rules. For instance, the sacrifice of female animals and cows is completely prohibited to maintain the ritual's purity. Now, because of its intense nature, this practice naturally sparks a ton of discussion today. On one side, you have the devotees' viewpoint. They see this as a deeply rooted, ancient religious tradition that's absolutely essential for maintaining cosmic balance. On the other side, animal rights groups bring up very real modern ethical concerns. They point out that, hey, maybe this symbolic offering of the ego could be achieved through non-literal alternatives instead of literal sacrifice. It's a really fascinating intersection of ancient spiritual frameworks rubbing up against how we view ethics in the modern day. All right, let's head into our final section, Section 5, Experiencing the Living Temple. Moving away from the dense esoteric philosophy for a second, what does it actually feel like to be a pilgrim here today? Well, this isn't some dusty monument frozen in time. The temple pulses with a daily rhythm that treats the Divine Mother as a living, breathing entity. The day kicks off super early, at 5:30 a.m., with a Mangala Arti to gently awaken the goddess. Throughout the morning, devotees make their offerings, red cloth, flowers, incense. Then by 1 p.m., the temple physically closes down so the goddess can rest and be offered bhoga, a sacred meal. The doors swing open again at 3 p.m. for further darshan, before finally closing for the evening. It's this continuous, incredibly intimate daily relationship between the priests, the devotees, and the divine. And honestly, nothing brilliantly illustrates the temple celebration of the divine feminine quite like the Ambubachi Mela. Every single June, the temple acknowledges the earthly, bodily reality of creation by celebrating the goddess's annual menstruation. The temple completely closes its doors for 3 days. When it finally reopens, it sparks this massive, joyous celebration of fertility. It is a profound and frankly incredibly rare honoring of the sanctity of the female biological cycle, played out on a grand, cosmic scale. You might be thinking a place like this is hidden away in the middle of nowhere, but despite its intense esoteric reputation and its location high up on the Nilachal Hills, getting to this spiritual epicenter is surprisingly easy. It's located just 6.8 kilometers away from the Kamakhya railway station in Guwahati. That's practically a stone's throw. It makes it highly accessible for the millions of pilgrims and curious seekers who travel there every single year.
So, from a dark cave honoring a natural rock fissure to a hybrid architectural wonder shaped by centuries of history, the Kamakhya Temple completely challenges our conventional ideas of worship. It reminds us that creation requires both generation and transformation. So I want to leave you with this thought to mull over. If the ancient wisdom of Kamakhya teaches that true transformation requires us to symbolically offer up our raw, primal instincts, what ego-driven desires do you need to sacrifice in your own life today to move forward? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with me. Catch you next time.